Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our chats with Emily, as we're calling our readings through the poems of Emily Dickinson contained within the Johnson edition. We turn now to poem 106, The Daily Follows Soft the Sun. There's a good argument to be made that this is another one of these Sam Boyle's poems. We've mentioned Sam Boyle's in a number of earlier lectures. Of course, Sam plays, along with his wife, a very interesting role in the life of Emily Dickinson, especially from the perspective of the publishing side and, of course, the giving of advice side and all of that as well. Now, there's always been this interesting comment that's made in the study of Emily's poetry about what's sometimes referred to as Emily's flattery. So Emily plays lots of games in her poetry. We're going to see it here. It isn't altogether clear whether she's being completely serious or if she's kind of flattering, for example, as Samuel Boyce, to get him to take seriously her stuff. We are going to see her referencing herself again as Daisy. You'll remember in poem 85 that we had a similar kind of project happening. Now, our assumptions here that you've been following our stuff at LearnStrong.net, down that left-hand side, chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you already been exposed to our introductory set of comments, and as well, you've, I hope, already worked through the previous 104 poems as we now turn to this one. Now, it is true that this complicated relationship between Emily and both of the Boyles, actually, is going to be somewhat central to our reading of this poem. Let's just enjoy the poem. The daisy follows soft the sun, and when his golden walk is done, sits shyly at his feet. He, waking, finds the flower there. Wherefore, marauder, art thou here? Because, sir, love is sweet. We are the flower, thou the sun. Forgive us. If his days decline, we nearer steal to thee, enamored of the parting west, the peace, the flight, the amethyst night's possibility. Now, I find this a fascinating poem for a number of reasons. Again, it's never clear in so many of these poems that she is in fact speaking to Samuel Boyles. If in fact she is, she did call Sam Boyles the sun in a letter, number 908. So this has led some scholars to say, you know, I really do think something's going on here. Just to remind, in poem 85, you'll remember that she said, I have not told it, but since Jesus dared, sovereign, know a daisy, thy dishonor shared. This idea of qualifying herself as a daisy then makes some sense here with the opening line. In poem 124 and in poem 481, we're going to hear about this daisy thing again. The daisy follows, and then the key word here, soft the sun. And you've got some very interesting, I'm going to say romantic language. Some have called it erotic language with the final line, along with some religious language. So here we've got soft the sun. If, in fact, she is the daisy and the sun is Sam Boyles, then we kind of get the idea. The daisy follows soft the sun, and when his golden walk is done, notice the rhyming there with sun and done, sits shyly at his feet. Now, there's only one other time that the word shyly gets used, and it is in poem 663. And that one will run something like this. When it said, we talk in careless and in toss, a kind of plummet strain, each sounding shyly just how deep the other's one had been. This idea of shy will begin to build around this notion that we've seen already of Emily as little, as tiny, as fragile, the daisy. Notice shyly at his feet. Now, readers of this poem initially would recognize this at his feet set of lines very easily as being a reference to the story that is contained in Luke 10:40, right before the story of Lazarus and all of that, with Martha and Mary and Martha sitting at the feet of Jesus having conversation with Jesus. In other words, to sit at the feet is to obviously pay homage to. So notice, and when his golden walk is done, sits shyly at his feet, that is to say the daisy, in other words her. He, waking, finds the flower there. By the way, when this poem was published in 1890, the word there was near. It's interesting. Now what's missing, obviously, we've seen this already a number of times in Emily's poetry, is the quotation marks. In other words, it's clear that the son is now ready to speak and will ask the simple question, "Wherefore, marauder, art thou here?" By the way, marauder only gets used one time, and it's right here. It's an interesting word, marauder, right? And then again, the response is the rest of the poem, but there's no quotation mark here. Because, sir, which tells us that the son is in fact a man, which has led many to think it's his Samuel's. Love is sweet. And of course, love is sweet is going to be a somewhat controversial line, because I thought we were talking about daisies and the sun. Obviously, daisies love the sun because it helps them to grow. Love is sweet as a phrase is only used one time in all our poetry, and it's here. And then all of a sudden, the pronoun goes to we. We are the flower, thou the sun. Now, of course, who is this we? And many have argued that this is the same game that Whitman plays. We gave full lectures on every poem of Leaves of Grass in our Talks with Walt. And now in our Chats with Emily, we see something similar happening here. In other words, the idea of the soul and Emily's contact with the soul here. We are the flower. Notice, interestingly, she didn't say daisy here. She just said flower. Thou, the sun. And then notice the exclamation points to end this poem. Forgive us, note the religious language now, forgive us if as days decline, we nearer steal to thee. This idea of stealing as in running towards the one that one loves. Enamored, we're back to love is sweet. Enamored of the parting west, the peace, and notice our trinities here, the peace, the flight, the amistad. Now, amistad will get used several more times in her poetry. 121. In 245, I find it fascinating. In 245, she'll say it this way: I woke and child my honest fingers, the gem was gone, and now an amethyst remembrance is all I own. Amethyst related to remembrance. We're going to see this amethyst again in 318, and then we're going to see it in 1609 near the end of our study, when she says, sunset that screens reveals, enhancing what we see by menaces of amethyst and motes of mystery. So we're talking, of course, about this purple quartz. Notice again the threes, the peace, the flight, the amethyst. And then, interestingly, night's possibility. Night's possibility. Of course, some have argued this is interesting juxtaposition of religious language to, dare we say it, even erotic languages, with the possibility of night as the sun goes down. I love this word possibility. You'll see it several times in 10 poems. We're going to see this most famously in poem 657, I dwell in possibility. I also would remind you, and we pointed this out already, her use of the word perhaps and possibility, they come together in my mind. In poem 696, you'll remember her acres of possibility, as we commented on it already. What exactly is going on in this little poem at 2a? What are we going to say about it? Well, I think the argument that she's making is sometimes it is hard to be in the presence of greatness or perceived greatness and know how appropriately to respond. That is one reading of it. Of course, there is another reading of this, again, Emily's flattery, that she wants Saint-Beuve to take her seriously. She wants the sun to take the daisy seriously. And the best way for that to happen is for the daisy to genuflect, to show, hey, I'm very much about showing you the level of respect that you need. At 2b, I love the juxtaposition of the religious and the erotic language, if you read this as erotic language at the end. At 3a, I think the Luke 10:40 passage comes immediately to mind of sitting at the feet of Jesus. I would also challenge you to think about the idea in Gibran's The Prophet, where you have a very similar kind of idea of the prophet will speak and the people are there to show awe, show respect. We have given full lectures on Gibran's Prophet at learnstrong.net. Down that left-hand side, you can find that playlist. And I'm hopeful that maybe you've had some exposure to that as well, if you are especially a fan of Gibran and the Prophet. Finally, at 3b, who is a person in your life that you respect, that you revere, dare we even say it, that you awe and love as in a similar way? And, of course, we would be remiss to not ask it this way: are you that person in someone else's life? Maybe Emily is becoming that for you as well. Thank you.